Just in case you ain't know, let me get more familiar. Just tryna spread love, you know that hate could kill ya. I'm tryna see what's up, let me make one phone call. You know I got all my digits right, and now I need yours. I can be seconds away from just tasting me taking you down. You can be waking up naked, just looking around. I can be who you've been waiting for right in your face all along. And I can be the one you're looking for, or I could be wrong. Yeah. I know you sick of them boys from around the way now. And I know you wanna get away. Let me take you to a place where everything up, everything. Seeing all them boys just like to play now. Baby, I ain't coming here for games. Let me put you on this plane where everything up, but just don't touch my shit, my shit.
Hey, let me talk my shit,
my shit.
Oh yeah, my shit.
Yeah.
Little girl, let me talk my shit.
Let me talk my shit.
Again, let me talk my shit.
My shit.
Let me grab mine off like that.
Yeah.
Hey, let me talk my
shit. You could be tanning in the south of France or on beaches in Mexico. Bringing this sandwich at top of my hand, your bottom is Mexico. Girl, you've been dealing with amateurs, time to get you a professional. I'm cocky, girl, yeah, I know. I love me, I let it show. Fly ain't an issue for ya. You already bought your paper. Whole world I can show ya. Let me be the one to take ya. They better not come and knocking. We be tryna wake the neighbors. Tell them they sleep tomorrow, or they gon' have to wait. Cause I know you sick of them boys from around the way now. And I know you wanna get away. Let me take you to a place where everything up, everything. Seeing all them boys just like to play now. Baby, I ain't coming here for games. Let me put you on this plane where everything up, but just don't touch my shit, my shit.
Girl, let me talk my shit,
my shit,
my shit, my shit.
Yeah.
Girl, let me talk my shit.
Let me talk my shit,
Girl, let me talk my shit.
my shit.
I'ma grab my nuts like that.
Yeah. Let me talk my shit. You can stay here on the ground if you like, or come on the ride of your life. If we can stay in the clouds, why would we ever come down? Never come down. Why would we ever come down? You know I love it when everything up. Just don't touch my shit, my shit.
Girl, let me talk my shit,
My shit.
my shit. Like that.
Yeah.
Girl, let me talk my shit.
Let me talk my shit. My shit. Yeah. Let me talk my shit.
Yeah, V12, Virgo. We ain't gonna go back and forth and play this cat and mouse game. It is what it is. If you with it, let me know from the beginning. What it's gonna be. Yeah.
So what it's gonna be, baby girl? And like you're tryna come home. Leave me, girl. So I see the come home. Leave you, girl. And I'm really tryna roll.
Hop in the whip, I'm about to roll. Dismissing all these bitches hitting up the phone. I'm headed to the spot just to be alone. I step in, get a table.
Check one. Okay, party people. Hey, I feel a little echo going on. I feel like a DJ. Welcome to the Black Source podcast. So I want to tell everybody up front that we don't have the full panel. I know y'all missed the panel. Let me say something about the panel. The panel is busy as fuck. Like this is not no bullshit panel. Like everybody has major shit going on, like international shit. People be all over the country, the professional dancers, People got their own businesses they got popping. People got, Shanoa Can Cook. They got Wavy, fitted by Wave. Yo, it's nothing going. And then Heba is an international fucking foodie critic and photographer and shit. Like, she be everywhere. And so that's how it is. However, they'll be back. I promise. You have my word. They will be back. And in the meantime, whoever I have to chop it up with me, gonna be the one to chop it up. Last week, I want to thank Nadja for stepping in. She was my girl. She came through for me. But I am so happy to see Robert back.
Yeah, boy. So what's good?
Well, I really want to talk about male versus female issues. I really want to talk about that. Like, I've been seeing so many things in the news and on Facebook and everything recently about that dynamic, the dynamic between male and female. It hasn't been necessarily like really, really like evil lately. It has not been. There has been times in the past where it seems like, we were going at each other's neck constantly. But I don't feel like that energy is still there. I'm starting to see I feel like we're starting. Am I delusional, or are we starting to get to a place where guys are starting to get it a little bit, and we're getting somewhere? Do you feel that at all?
I mean, I don't know. You know what it is too? I realized that we're older, so we're in different age groups. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
And then also even our social media circle, if you will, is also kind of like age appropriate, if I will. So it's kind of like we don't necessarily get to see what the day-to-day thought processes of 20-something, like early 20-something. Like, how many people do you have on your friends list, in comparison to the latter of people who are 20, 21, 22, 19?
Ooh, I don't have a lot of that young, but I do try to chop it up with the youth as much as I can, though. I really do. I try to keep them on my, but damn it, it's so hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Like, the music, first of all, I'm having trouble relating to the youth, but I'm trying. I am seriously trying.
That's one of the hallmark signs of when you know that you're getting old, when the music starts to sound like noise to you.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'm trying so hard to fight that. I've been doing pretty good. Like, I tell people, so when it comes to trap music, I can deal with a couple, but the couple that I can deal with are already years old. Like, I still like Designer, that first shit that he came out with.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I still will rock that. Like, I will literally rock that on my in my headset. But the newer ones that's coming out with the Migos and them, they're newer ones. I can't get up on.
I'm
so
right there with you.
So there's a limit how far I go. But yes, you're right.
We
You gotta
old.
stay in touch. We definitely get. Well, I'll be 45 next month.
Oh wow. You're like a monument.
Hey, son. I'm like the ruins of a fucking
don't
monument.
worry. I'm not too far behind you. I feel like I'll be looking at the calendar every time the new month comes in. I'm like, another month closer to death.
I'm going to warn you of something. I remember. Okay, so bust this out, right? Mm-hmm. If anybody is listening, I should be on both pages right now. I already shared. But if you're out there, my peoples, we are going to discuss male and female issues on any topic that you want. Yeah. Also a hot topic. So please call in. Anything that you
hear from the callers.
I want to hear from Tiana, definitely, because she wrote a very interesting post that had me I was so open. I wanted to chop it up with her on this post so bad, but today I had the day from hell, and I could not even focus to the way I wanted to, because there was so much I wanted to add to what she had said. But she was talking about submissiveness versus how a man wants a woman to be submissive to him, and how that works, how that all works. And she had a great post about it. I really hope she calls in to talk about that. But I might have to tag her. I'm hyped for her to call in about that. But so we will get to that, and anybody who wants to discuss those topics or any topic that you want to discuss, tonight is Hot Topic Night. Happy born day to Shanoa.
Yes. That's
why she's out today. She's out turning up for her birthday.
Yes.
So we're just gonna do kind of freestyle topics. But if she was here, we would definitely be talking about the Mueller report.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, is that how you say it? Mueller.
Yeah, that's why I would even mention it because that's her bit of her
Mm-hmm.
specialty, you know. So yeah, for sure.
She definitely would make that plain for anybody who need to understand it and what's going on with that. So next week, because I don't think anything big is happening with that right now. He released a report, and that was the end of it. I don't think that any other news has really come out about.
So let's
going on?
talk about something that'll get your blood boiling.
Boil my blood.
So just to throw something in there, the guy who kicked the woman in the face on the train, he
They
got
caught him.
apprehended.
They apprehended the guy.
Yeah.
So I was really hoping he'd get some street justice, but okay, it did not happen.
And
That
then,
didn't
so what do you? And I know you got a whole bunch to say about the woman in Texas that got beat up by the white guy over the parking spot.
So they caught him, right?
Yeah, they got his mug shot, all that.
That like very rarely does something like just makes me like viscerally like angry. Like I want to actually do some violence. I can see how, you know how they talk about, a race war is gonna happen to people. I can see that happening. Like in the moment of looking at that shit, I can feel like, yeah, something bad can happen. Like I want to do something physical to a white person right now. I want vengeance is all I could think of. He was giving her everything he had.
But those punches were pretty soft, though.
Are you kidding? He was good. He was wilding on her.
Yeah, he clocked her like a good 3-4 times. She didn't even drop.
Well, does that mean it was soft? I saw him well back on her.
He even caught her with an uppercut too. So I don't know.
I don't know either. But you're right. She did not fucking get knocked out. That is true. But let me tell you something. I would not want to take one of them punches. I think I would have I don't know. But I would not want to take one of them punches from him. The dude was a big dude. He looked like he was six foot something.
Yeah. I mean, she didn't look puny herself, if that matters for anything. But
It do, because you know why? Men are automatically, even if he was her size, he would have most likely been stronger. And him being bigger than her, she must have felt like she was being attacked by a bear. I would have felt like I was being attacked by a bear. It was absolutely the kind of thing that makes you, just like the thing on the train, though.
we got a caller.
Oh, we got a caller? Oh, caller, come in.
Hey, it's Donovan from Baltimore.
Hey, what's up?
Welcome back. What up, bro?
Welcome.
Sean, good to
Welcome.
see y'all doing your thing again.
Yeah, man. Talk up the things, man.
so
You can
I was
touch
just
on
wondering-
anything you want. Anything you want. We open
We're
tonight.
freestyling tonight.
Yeah, tonight is a freestyle. The big freestyle.
Oh, that's what's up. Okay. So this week, do y'all watch the Atheist Experience at all, or like Talk Heathen?
No, I heard
Any of those
you
programs?
mention it before, but feel free to tell me more about it, though.
I'll bet. So it's basically like they've been running for about 20 years, I think now. It's based off of this guy named Matt Dillahunty. He's a white guy, but I think that he does like one of the best jobs that I've seen in terms of just like talking about atheism, and then like also stoking conversations with like theists, try to figure out what they believe and why, and like having conversations about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So shout out to the Atheist Experience. In case
Yeah,
anybody
we
wants to
doing
check them out, but,
we doing a mix of that in the black people's version, you know?
which I appreciate,
Yeah, for
because
sure.
usually you only see like white males kind of taking on that kind of whole situation in terms of engaging theists. So
Yeah,
I
for
definitely
sure.
think y'all doing like some great work. But anyways, like I was watching the Atheist Experience, and they were talking about they actually had a gentleman from a group called the Black Non-Believers, which is like another like black atheist group. And they were talking to another black theist about like whether or not they thought that like Christianity and religion as a whole was like good or bad for black people. And I think that's like a huge debate that we have is like, is Christianity or religion a net benefit or a negative for black people? And I just kind of wanted to get what y'all, like, just hear y'all opinions, like, see what you thought about that. Like, do you think that religion itself has been, like, a net positive for us as a people, or negative, or maybe it's, like, positive at one point, negative at one point? So I just wanted to kind of get your ideas.
Let Monique shoot.
You know how if somebody, like, attack you, let's say somebody, like, take some fire and burn down your village, right?
Yeah.
And leave all of your women and your children wailing, right? And then you use that same flame to like cook a meal you know, while you're waiting
like that
for
analogy.
somebody to rebuild something. I'm not saying that religion has not benefited us, like, you know, in a lot of ways. Obviously, there was ways that it built a community. It was ways that we were able to organize and civil rights pushes and shit like that. But what it did to us initially, to even like anything that takes away our like sense of self and our sense of agency, like and gives us a master. The last thing a black person needs is a master. Like, we do not need that in our mental. So I think that there's no getting around the fact that that's a negative overall. But yes, we have taken that negative and found the jewel in it. You know what I mean? And used that in positive ways. I think we're done with it. We don't need it now. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
What do you think, Robert?
Any other thoughts on that? Before I kind of wanted to share with my opinion.
Yeah, so I actually pretty much agree with Monique. I think that like religion has, like Christianity specifically, like I think it definitely had some benefits to us, but overall it was like a disaster. And I think that analogy was perfect. Like, yeah, you got to cook a meal off of it, but your whole shelter is gone. Yeah,
you know.
And like, you know, like one of the main good things that was in it is like it unified us. It unified us towards a cause, and you know, Martin Luther King got to freak it in his sermons, and you know what I'm saying? Use it to help further his civil rights movement. But overall, like definitely was the negative.
I feel like I kind of agree with both of y'all, but for like a different reason.
Sure.
Like I agree with the same reasons that y'all said, but in terms of like what I think about on the daily about why it's bad for our communities, I think about a little bit differently. Like for me, I feel like our belief in religion impacts our thoughts in other ways. You know what I mean? So like if we, like for an example, I feel like as a people, if we are more likely to believe something so like kind of ridiculous, you know what I mean, without really good reason to believe it, without being critical, being fearful about being critical about like what our beliefs are. Right. I feel like that almost melds itself into other areas of the way we think, and the way we make decisions about the world and life. Because like a lot of times our beliefs don't live in a vacuum. You know, a lot of times our beliefs are sort of an amalgamation of all these different experiences and thought processes that we have. So for me, the danger in religion is not just like the fact that, you know, we have pastors making all this money, not giving back to the communities, and that we have like, you know, this dependency on this white deity or whatever. But my bigger issue is that like I feel like it impacts our thought processes in other areas.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
No, I agree. And
Absolutely.
And to piggyback off of that, like, you know, I said this in a previous show before that, but like when you don't understand science, everything seems magical. Everything seems spiritual. Everything seems like it came from God. You know what I'm saying? And the more and more that you like understand, like, cause science is just a attempt at explaining like phenomena, you know, like natural phenomena. So like the more you understand science, the more of the fog of life gets removed. Like, you know, like, you ever played those, I don't know if you ever played like a real-time strategy game like Command and Conquer or one of those games. And when you start off
on the PP.
Yeah, and when you start off, the whole map is black, you know? But as you scout and you move your units out, the map, the fog of the map gets cleared up till eventually you can see the whole map. So that kind of is like what life is like, you know? So and religion is just the obvious convenient way to answer it. Like we all want to know. Like no matter how primitive you are, or I don't want to say primitive, but like no matter how toolless you are, you still want to understand the world around you. And if it wasn't for religion, people would be spending like their whole lifetime trying to explain things that they can't necessarily explain. So
and that's the thing that is like, I feel like once you get more into science and less into like religion and spirituality, you become more comfortable with that, with the fact that sometimes you just don't know. Like,
no, that's a
sometimes
fact.
you just have to say like you don't know, and it's okay to say you don't know, and it's actually good to say you don't know, because that way you can find out what the true answer is instead of like
I agree
100% an answer for something, you know. Like I think as a people that would help us a lot sometimes is just to be like, you know, I don't know. You know, and that's like, let's figure out the answer together.
Well,
you know, instead of saying like it has to be a God or it has to be this, it has to be that.
Well, the important part about that is that you need, like, you absolutely need to be inquisitive. Like, that's a part of it that is so important, because when we say we don't know, we have to say, okay, so let's figure it out. That is so important, because Christians are happy to say, I don't know. They're happy to say it. They will tell you that in a heartbeat, because they're taught that it's too mysterious for you to understand. So don't worry about it. Just everything God knows.
Earthly knowledge.
Yeah. Right. Wasn't the actual, like, I think the fruit in the Garden of Eden, they called it the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They literally didn't even try to hide it. They came right out and said, you're better off not knowing shit. You know what I mean? So, I think that, as long as we keep that part of it, like, we have to constantly be trying to learn more. You can't just accept
absolutely.
it. Like,
and the thing is, like, how do you learn when you feel like you already have an answer? You know, so or you feel like or either you feel like you have the answer already, or you feel like that it's not up to you to have an answer. You know what I mean? Or you know, but my issue isn't even with that. My thing is like, if you feel like it's not up to you to have an answer, that's okay. But my problem is when you posit an answer that has no evidence, you know, and then you expect everybody else to believe it, and you look at other people who don't believe it as if they're like the weird ones, you know?
Right. Yeah, but you know, that just comes back.
Because I'm like, wait.
But you know, that just comes back to the fact that, like, critical thinking is a skill that you have to learn and sharpen. It's not like people aren't just born able. Yeah, they not just born with the ability to think critically. Like, maybe they might be able to do it on like a shallow level, but like in-depth critical thinking is a skill, because even in order to do that, thinking is a process. You know, process elimination, blah 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 blah. So like, so that's a big part of it. And for me, that's like, I always say, like, that's one of like the hallmarks of like not educated, but of an intelligent person for me.
Well, yeah, but see, this is why I don't necessarily agree with you all the time when you say, when you put so much credence on education, because the real seed about you know, critical thinking, like the real seed to it that people snooze on is honesty. You have to be willing to admit so much as your worldview opens up, as you're learning things that are contrary to what you were already thinking. You got to be ready to say, okay, I was wrong, as your shit gets falsified over and over again. And that's a character trait. That's not an educational trait. That's a character trait, to be able to be honest with yourself and be like, I was wrong over and over again.
Yeah, but you know, just being educated just means that you're knowledgeable, though.
Right, and that's exactly what I've been trying to tell you. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily more intelligent, because me and you have argued about this over and over again. And this is the point I'm trying to make. I'm sorry, Donovan, go ahead.
But what it is like, some of it could be intelligence, you know what I mean? But I think more often than not, what it is fear. It's like, because like, in order for you to say like, I don't know, you have to then admit that the answer that you had before might not be correct.
Right.
And for Christians, you know, they're taught, just like I was taught when I was a Christian, you know, like you're not supposed to question these things.
Yeah,
these are things that, you know, are just evident in their truth. So a lot of times you feel like fearful about even questioning things that should be questioned. You know what I mean? And that gets in the way of critical thinking.
Yeah, because again, it's a thought process. Like, critical thinking is a thought process too, to think critically. You know what I'm saying? So your way of thinking is molded by, you know, the outside influences in your environment, different stimuli, et cetera, et cetera. So they're ready to instill that fear into you of questioning things that are beyond what the book already tells you is demonized. So your mind doesn't even go that far. You know what I'm saying? So this is why I feel like, again, going back to what I was saying, that like, I think that's like one of the hallmarks of intelligence, of being able to recognize where you're wrong, acknowledge it, and be able to take in new information.
Right.
Because most people can't do that. They just be wrong. Even if they wrong and strong, they gonna ride to the end.
Right. And there's nothing wrong. As I told you before, there's nothing wrong with being wrong and strong. It really is not. You should be passionate about what you believe. However, you have to be willing to take it. Like, take it hard. Cry about it. You know what I'm saying? I do. I'm like, dang. Now I gotta go back and face this motherfucker. You know, like, I take that shit hard. I'm not gonna lie, but I just feel like if you teach yourself to start to like celebrate learning new shit, or like I think you can train yourself to celebrate that uncomfortable feeling of having your worldview, fucked with. Like
right. Yeah. No, I feel you. I feel you.
Like,
that's such a good point. I've actually done the same thing myself. Like,
right.
We're to the point where it's like if I get something wrong or I fail at something, I kind of get like excited a little bit because I'm trying to figure out like, okay, how can I grow? What did I do wrong?
Yeah, that's
like,
definitely a skill to teach yourself to do that.
Way where you're not afraid to be wrong.
I had and even though we hear that all the time, that's like a cliche that we hear that all the time, right? But once you hear somebody like, okay, so Rohan, who sometimes listens into the show, I don't think I've seen him in the comments, but he is like millionaire business, he got businesses and shit like that, right?
Right.
It took him to like tell me that in order for me to really internalize it in a different kind of way. When he was like, if you fail, you get up because you were supposed to fail. That's how you learned. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, hearing him say that about something when I was trying to have a business, and seeing that he's successful, he really believed that, and lived by that creed. Like that really made it real for me. And so I do think it's these kind of things you have to train yourself.
I'm an entrepreneur as well. I studied entrepreneurship in school, at university. I got a degree in it, and that's something that they drill into you. Is like you got to be comfortable with failure. You got to look for failure. Right. You only learn so much through success, but failure is really where the real gold is at, because that teaches you how to become better. It teaches you how to improve, and they drill that into our heads to the point where we think about failure completely different than most people in school. You know what I mean? Like when we get a failure, we're like, okay, like let's try to figure out what happened. Like some of the sayings that we have is like fail fast. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
So you can figure out what you've done wrong. And back to religion, like I feel like that's one thing that a lot of times religion kind of denounces is the ability for you to feel what it's like to be wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially about something so important like where we came from. And
now I wanted to ask you guys a question, and I don't even know how to really phrase this question, but I'm trying to get back. I really want this show to touch on male-female dynamics, just for the simple fact that it's just me and Robert here. I think it was a great time to focus on that. So I want to ask you guys a question. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to religion, right, let me tell you what my position is about how, obviously in the beginning, we've gone over this before. In the beginning, we know that, early humans, early species of humans was, they needed to try to figure out what the fuck the thunder was so they didn't have a heart attack. So they created some answers, and that's fine and good. Mm-hmm. How did we get to this point where men dominate every fucking facet of religion? Like, how do we get to that point? Because obviously, if you look at some of the older, way ancient, figurines, and I think they had that Venus figurine where they showed some like fertility goddesses and shit like that.
No, but they have religions that worship fertility, where like women are like the fertile woman was like the figurehead of the religion.
Right.
Those religions just didn't last. But
why though? I'm just trying to figure out.
It's because men got muscles and they kill. That's all. And the majority of the religion.
I think that's a part of it, but like also kind of piggyback on what you said, like most of the dominant religions nowadays, Islam, like all the Semitic religions, are patriarchal sort of like societies, based on patriarchal societies where men had more rights than women. You know what I mean? So like as these religions spread and these ways of life spread, so did that way of life of like patriarchal society. You know what I mean? And this focus on the men being the head, the men being the leader. A lot of times the men being the voice of God. You know what I mean? Like you don't hear about God speaking to a lot of women in the Bible. You hear usually about him speaking.
That just reminds me of something.
So now you have this thing where you're starting to associate men more with divinity, you're starting to associate men more with that religion, and men more with that society, frankly. And like that, I think that history has a huge part to do with that in terms of like, are we telling stories of women? Are we telling historical stories of like strong women who've made an impact? Are we really like highlighting the fact that women have made tremendous impact on every facet of our society as we progressed,
how did we get to the point that we edged women out of that position? Like, okay, so men do have the muscle, right?
Yeah.
Men do have the muscle, and I understand that. I understand in a very deep way, because if I'm honest. I know that I want somebody who can slay the tiger or whatever the fuck, the saber tooth.
Right, protect you
Right?
and shit, you know?
Take down a mastodon. I want that energy, you know, and so I'm gonna like kind of like let you do that, right? But I got my shit that I do
Right.
that you absolutely need from me. So how
Yeah.
did y'all
Oh,
get in this
absolutely.
position? Like, yeah, you could use violence against me, but don't I have some things I could use too?
No.
Absolutely. you got the one thing that all men need.
Right.
All straight
But
men
they
need,
could just
right?
take
So-
take that by violence though. So we really don't. So that really is the answer. Violence was the
Your
answer.
wit, that's all. You can use your wit. That's probably the
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think, and honestly, we could even bring that question to like, why have men conquered so many other men? It's like that's happened because of the use of violence, the use of war,
Right.
and being able to be dominant in that way. But now what we're learning is that like dominance doesn't necessarily always mean your physical strength. In the world that we live
But
in
let me
now,
just say something though
we see
before
a
I
lot more
forget
people
this.
coming up
Go ahead and drop it.
because they know how to utilize.
Hold
their
on,
strength in
Donovan. We're gonna
different
take a
ways.
point. Hold
So
on.
this reminded me of a meme that I had seen a couple days ago that like because we speaking about patriarchy. So they like in the Western religion they make it seem like marriage is such an important institution, but God doesn't have a
Right.
wife.
Right.
So technically speaking, if you just got a bunch of baby mothers, you're actually following the footsteps of God because, like, Mary wasn't his wife, right?
Oh, did I not? Did I share this page? Slims?
Mary wasn't God's wife. Mary just impregnated her, right?
Right.
So technically, Mary is God's baby's mother, right?
Right. Absolutely. He snuck in and did whatever he had to do, and
Yeah.
you
So
know,
so if
She pregnant.
if humans are supposed to be made in God's image, then men are not supposed to get married because God didn't get married. You know what I'm saying?
No. Well.
yeah, and not just that. Like, if we were supposed to be made in God's image, we'd be doing a lot of terrible things because, like,
Well,
especially
he
when we
tells
talk
us to
about,
do
like,
that
people
stuff though. He tells us to
Uh-huh.
do that stuff though. So technically, it's not horrible because the Father sanctioned it.
yeah, because God did it, right?
Yeah.
But have you guys y'all ever heard of the story about the Amalekites? The Amalekites?
I feel like I have. Tell me some more. I'll probably fill in the blanks.
Hang on. I want to pause for 1 second. I just want to say that the youth is listening, so let's make sure that we give knowledge to the youth. Because we were just talking about the youth. So
Yeah.
Jason, who is April's son, is in the vicinity. So I want to make sure that we get to that. We get to things that pertain to the youth at some point during this show. I really, really want to reach out to that
So let me ask you a question,
thing. But go ahead.
Donovan. Right?
Yeah, Donna.
So let me ask you a question. You have kids?
No, sir.
So when you have kids, are you gonna? And they ask you like, what happened where did grandma go when she died? What are you gonna tell them?
I'm gonna basically be honest. Is like I'm gonna say I think when people die, they go in the ground, their bodies decompose, go back into the earth. You know?
I mean, I think that's what all atheists think. But I'm saying, what are you gonna tell your child?
yeah, that's what I'll tell them.
Oh wow.
But what I'll tell them is like that's what I think. You know what I mean? That's what I believe. I'll make it. I mean, because like for an example, my girlfriend, she's a theist.
Oh wow.
She's a Christian. So like,
How does
we
that
already
work?
Talked about how we would talk about with our kids in terms of like being able to allow them to choose for themselves instead of saying the world is like this, the world is like this. We'll say this is what we believe, and you can kind of choose as you get older and
Oh,
learn
wow.
more.
So
You
how
know,
did you
so,
get?
like,
How did you get?
That's
How did you get stuck with a theist?
stuck. I like that terminology.
Yeah, I'm just messing with you.
I met her in an ethics class at university, and I literally fell in love with her.
That's
Just fell in love with
interesting,
her.
man. I always said that I could
and-
never date a theist, ever. Like I've done it in the past, but now as a grown, gray-haired man,
I don't think I
Can't
could
do
deal
it.
with like a Christian, a hard Christian.
I get it, man. Trust me, I get it because like there are certain things that she uses to explain the world that I can never agree with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But luckily, she's the kind of person that I can like talk to about these things, and we can have these conversations and have these debates. You know what I mean? She'll listen. You know what I mean? And honestly, I kind of holding out hope that eventually, you know, she might deconvert, but. 'Cause she is asking a lot more
keep
questions.
the
than
power,
she
man.
needs to ask.
Persistence, man.
Chip away at her.
Yeah, just chip away
I
at
want to
it.
go back to the thing about about God and his wife, right? So,
Sure.
I don't know why they decided that all men need a wife if God doesn't have one. I don't know. I don't understand that. Also, though, the whole thing about the Mary story, which is a rape story.
Definitely a rape story.
It's weird how you don't think about these things sometimes. Like, like I should have known that from the first time that I heard the story, even as a child, but it did not click.
Yeah, because
for
they
me.
rosied it up.
They rosied it up, right? And it's weird how things don't click for you, because even like with my Hotep shit, I was in the conversation with some friends, and they were like, "Yeah, I think it was Courtney was like, Horace, got raped by," and I was like, "What? No, he didn't." But then when I went back, I was like, "Dang, like I didn't even look at that as whatever." We can get to that another. My point is, you got to be careful, what you just like swallow, because. No pun intended. You gotta be careful what you just like, take in, because like, so with that being a rape story, that should be the end of it for like anybody who has any couth about themselves should be like, no, I'm not rocking with the rest of this whole story now.
Yeah,
I'm throwing this out.
But
Well, that's the thing is like you got to see it as rape first to be able to.
Yeah.
to have that
You can't
thought.
not
Like-
see it that
like
way.
a lot of times people can't even
they
get
probably
to that
thinking
point.
it's God. God can't do no wrong. If he did it, then it's okay. Type shit.
I
Like
guess.
it can't even be rape. If he
But
spits
there's
in the
some-
kid's
but there's
face,
some other
there's
things
gonna
I
be a
think
way to
that become
justify
real
it.
Clear, because like even with the whole rape thing, it's like. I definitely believe it was a rape story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I definitely believe it. But there's a lot of like you have to put a lot of things together in order to even come to that conclusion. When I'm talking to theists, the things that I bring up is I bring up like the story with the Amalekites. I bring up Exodus in terms of like the rules of slavery.
Is the
that God gave
Amalekites
to
the one where
Moses.
where he sent them
You know.
out to rape? He sent them to rape the daughter to save the guests in his home. Or
The
no?
Amalekites?
Yeah, tell me about the Amalekites.
Okay, so the Amalekites, basically God gave instructions to a prophet to talk to the Israelites. Sorry, to commit genocide against the Amalekites. So basically, God gave them instructions to kill every man, woman, child, infant, and animal.
Was this
But
when they put the blood on the door?
completely wiped them out from the face of the earth, and that was God's will in the Old Testament. So. These are the stories that I bring up because you can point directly to the Bible and say this is what God said. You know what I mean? And it's a lot harder for them to like try to like play mental gymnastics.
It's really
around
not
the
though,
fact
because they
that
just tell
God
you straight
actually
up this is Old
commanded
Testament,
people to kill
and Jesus
infants,
changed the game. That's what
you
they'll
know?
tell you. But go ahead.
I mean, shit like no bastard child should be able to go into the house of the Lord. I mean, I think that's a big one. Pretty much,
Considering Jesus
almost
is-
all of my friends are the products of are bastards in one way or another. So they all not
Right.
going to heaven. I always remind them of that. I always be like, yo,
I hope you don't think you're making the cut.
yeah, we're gonna be in hell together. Like, don't worry.
Turn it up.
I mean, if you want to know some sad shit though, like this is how bad it gets sometimes. Like my dad's a theist. He calls himself a Christian mystic or whatever it is, and
A
he kinda
Christian
brought me up
mystic?
in religion growing up. Like he exposed me to a lot of different kinds of like religious.
Wait,
schools of
hold up.
thought.
He's
But-
a Christian mystic. What's
Yeah,
that?
he that's how he defines himself.
What is
Christian
that?
mystic. That's a good question. I think he believes that every religion has a sort of like, some side of mysticism to it. So like I believe like the Jewish people have the Kabbalah, Christians have like the Christian mystery system. It's like there's a bunch of different like I guess I'll say like knowledge bases that different religion uses, and there's sort of like the mainstream understanding of the book, and then there's like the mystical sort of understanding that.
I wanna-
and
I'm
honestly,
sorry,
I'm not
I don't wanna
knowledgeable enough to
interrupt,
even
but
like
I wanna-
understand the true distinction.
Donovan, I just want to get some comments in really quickly. So April said, I told Jason that nothing happens when we die. The human body is a complex machine made of fragile materials that cannot withstand time. I
think that's a really good explanation,
I was
to be
very,
honest with you.
very blunt with my daughter in the same exact fucking way. I talked to her from a science standpoint, the same way I taught her about sex and everything else. I think if you're just like matter of fact with children, then they can accept things, which is it's so important because I was traumatized by the concept of hell and shit like that. I was
Same,
traumatized by that concept as a child. Like that shit fucked with my mental. And so you can save your child from that. I hope I'm not waving in front of the camera.
No, you're good.
Cause I do that sometimes. People
You're
say.
good.
But yeah. So I think that's a great fucking answer.
Yeah.
I want to say. I want to say that Marcus Washington said you can't make life without a woman. Not putting it in the story doesn't mean it didn't happen. I know that's right, Marcus. How you doing, by the way? And so, okay, so yeah, so those are some of the
And that's not
comments
true,
that
by
are
the
coming
way.
through. That you can't make life without a woman.
Yeah, that's rubbish.
Oh, so how can
Yeah.
well you can't make
can't make
human
life
life
without a woman,
without a
Yeah, human life, because they have like,
you got
yeah, they got asexual bacterial organisms
Right, you
that
got
can
them
make
there,
copies
right.
of themselves, and they're not. They're
yeah, you got yeah, that's true. But I think he's speaking more
But
about
I get,
humans.
but I get, yeah, I get where he's going, but he just said it like matter of factish, like no, sir.
Yeah,
He ain't
I'm
gonna go
sorry,
that
I
road.
want, but like that's.
I want to pause
It's a-
one
it's a-
time since we had to use. I want to pause one more time. As far as okay, so I had shared this video to my page, and it's my fault nobody saw it because I have not been feeding into the Black Source page enough. But I will be, and I hope everybody will like be checking it out for good shit. But one thing I put down that was dope, right? They were teaching these young boys, these young black boys, just like some basic shit for their mind one time. Like that's it, just a basic thing to put in their head so that they can go on through life. So the kids was like maybe like 5 or 4.
Oh
and
yeah, I saw.
Did
that
you
video.
see it?
Yeah. Actually, I've seen it.
I never
years
saw
ago.
that before.
And he was just like barking at them, like,
Yes.
"Are you a boy? No,
Right.
I'm a man."
He was giving them that authority that would make
Yeah.
most of them break. And I tell this story a lot of times, but I saw a young man, and he's going to remain nameless, but somebody from Rochester who I was close to. And I saw him always, he always been like kind of like thug type dude who handled his business in the street. And I saw him in front of his motherfucking CO, or not the CO, whatever you call it, parole officer. And his whole demeanor changed in a way, not in a way like I can go to jail, because, you can't go to jail just for looking at a man in the eye. You know what I mean?
I mean, technically you can't, but you can though.
You understand what I'm saying?
Them COs be talking to you like you a little boy.
Okay, this is what I'm saying though.
Yeah.
You gotta look people in the eye, regardless of how they talking to
No,
you.
I hear
You
you.
gotta look them in the eye, and I'm thinking like those. If we can start teaching the kids while they're young, like really boot camp their asses. You know what I'm saying? To withstand that pressure, because the dude was putting pressure on them to train them to not be able to be, in order to withstand that kind of pressure. I think one thing that Christianity does and that religion does is it takes that from you. Literally, it removes from you that desire to challenge authority or the ability to challenge authority by telling you that your authority is not to even be questioned. And I'll never forget one book in the Bible where he was mad at Job after he fucked Job's whole life up. Right?
Yeah,
so
he was
God
testing him. He was testing him.
He was completely destroyed his life. That's a test.
over a bet with
for
the fucking
Job.
devil. Get the fuck
Yo, that's
out
another
of
thing.
here.
Like that makes God seem so childish
Man,
and
get
petty.
the
Like
fuck outta
who
here.
tests
Yeah,
people?
But when he
If
was
he was
testing him,
alive,
when
if he was
Job
actually
finally
real,
did,
he'd
hang
be
on,
the-
when Job finally did like
he'd be tough.
semi-snap, God was like, how dare you? First
Didn't
of all,
I give you this and give you that?
Yeah. Who are you to question me? Ain't I the one who really, son? You got to flex? Weird flex, God. Really? I'm just a man here.
Insecure
Insecure
tendencies.
God.
Yeah.
Which he admits he's a jealous God. But I'm like,
And
so that's what he's
oftentimes,
doing. They're trying to
that
say,
famous scripture that says, lean not on your own understanding, and that's basically telling you like, don't use your own common sense. Don't use your
right?
own
They're
brain.
telling you straight out. Not
No, you're taking it out of
context.
context. You have to
You think
read
so?
the passage before it and after it and 10 passages ahead of it to understand
And then
it.
you have to read it before they changed it because
true, I
the
forgot.
Pope
Sorry.
found something and then the king
Yeah.
added something. Like they have a million excuses, but yeah, so that's important for the youth too. Like if you have young kids or if you know young men, that's a revolutionary act that we can do for blackness and for atheism. That's a revolutionary act that you can do is teach them how to like buck back on authority. Like you should have a drill with them. I was so impressed with that video. I was just so impressed that he was smart enough to know that was going to be a benefit to them kids for the rest of their life. People are scared to talk to authority. I think that comes directly from Christianity.
So let me ask you another question, Donovan, just to try to see like what kind of atheist you are. What do you think about Dr. Sebi?
I think he's a
Dr.
soft.
Steve? Okay. All right. Look.
I think Donovan is a soft.
I'm not gonna
ass
lie.
atheist.
Like, some of his stuff is like intriguing. It makes me want to like learn more about like, okay, what were you up to? But I don't necessarily believe in like the whole, like, just like basically getting rid of all of modern medicine to go back to like herbalism. And the reason why I don't believe it is because I understand that a lot of drugs are made from those herbs that he's talking about and those different substances. But you gotta have people who've actually studied like how the chemical compounds react with your, with your brain and react with your body in order to make any decisions. And my thing is like, even if you get one or two people who end up surviving based off of like Dr. Sebi's diet or whatever, his advice, you might have 5,000 people who actually died from taking that advice. So a lot of times what happens is people like look to some survivor of cancer or some survivor of some disease and say, hey, look at this person. They survived. They took Dr. Sebi's advice and they survived. But they overlook all the people who perished. You know what I mean? By taking his advice.
I pretty much agree with you 100% on all of that. Everything you just said over there.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, though. And I don't want to say that we should completely knock it.
No, we should actually.
We need to understand that a lot of the medicine is made out of like the herbs that they're talking about.
Yeah, but it's
like,
no.
Whether it's been studied, whether it's been regulated.
No.
That's the kind of
Take
stuff
the
we need to
herbs and the shit that you're talking about and test it and
but
put it through
also
the process.
not even
Study
just
it.
that too. They also take those drugs and then they put them. They make synthetics. All of the drugs that we take are synthetics of actual herbs. So they'll take it
Exactly.
and make it go from 20% potency to 300%
Right.
potency. You know what I'm saying?
But even with that being said, I am not knocking the idea that there are certain things that you might find that people may understand that the scientific community has not got hip to yet.
Okay.
That's very possible
Yeah.
too. So there's no problem with that. But just take it and put it through the rigors. Then if it's legit, it should pass the rigors
Don't
of the
say, hey,
testing.
take this and you'll be fine. Like study, see how it reacts. You know,
Right.
see how
pretty much.
see the actual effects on the human, on the human body and the human mind over time before you make these claims, because it's dangerous to make claims about something that could help when it hasn't been studied.
Yeah, because I do believe, like, I strongly believe in that, in some of that, I used this aloe and I put this on her burn and her burn felt better, and then nobody know about that shit before, this old lady in the jungle probably figured that out. So I'm definitely not never snoozing on their ability to figure shit out and be mad wise in they shit.
So,
I'm
but
just
here's
saying,
the thing.
put it through, if I'm going to use it in this modern time, put it through the rigors of testing, because I got other shit that's been tested. Why should I take a chance?
But the thing is that like homeopathic, what do they call it? What's the other
Yeah,
word for
homeopathy.
There's another word for it.
Whole something like whole, what is it called?
Holistic. There we go.
Holistic,
Yeah,
holistic.
holistic medicine is like it's like very like pseudo medicine. Like it doesn't like holistic medicine is not going to cure you from
Even though I
cancer.
can't afford
It's
it.
not going to cure you from AIDS. It's not going to cure you from syphilis. It's not going to cure you from polio. Like you got to get
Yeah.
them synthetic drugs, and if you don't, your ass is
Right.
dead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
This is also the problem too. Is like, we live in a country where, we're not allowed to negotiate pharmaceutical drug prices. So, for example, something like, something simple like an EpiPen, is like $400, $500, $600, up to $800 in the States. And in Taiwan, that same EpiPen is about $8. And in UK, that same EpiPen is about $13. So we live in a country where we basically have allowed drug companies to charge us whatever they want for drugs. And as a result, there's a lot of distrust around big pharma. There's a lot of distrust around pharmaceutical medicine. There's a lot of distrust around just the whole industry. And it allows people like Dr. Sebi to kind of like create this niche
I
where
agree.
people have been disenchanted and disenfranchised by these
I agree.
pharmaceutical drugs and their prices. And now they're like, oh, let me try this basil real quick because, it's cheaper. And if it works, you know what I mean? I have access to it. I can take it as much as I want. You know what I mean? And I won't feel like I'm being unhealthy in some way until they die.
Right.
So really, it's a societal problem, in my opinion. I feel like if we fix
I want to
the
say
fact
something
that,
real quick.
politicians
I want to
have
say
allowed
something.
pharmaceutical
I'm
drug
sorry to
companies
have to
charge
cut you
whatever
off.
they want.
I might have to do that a lot though. So it's always with love. But I want to say something about weed. I just see.
Okay.
Okay. So April says weed will quell a lot of your symptoms, though. So let's talk about weed for a second, because I see my good friend Vincent in here, Victor Von Hoovy, right? Me and him used to always laugh at that song "Legalize It," because in that song, Peter Tosh, Stephen Razor, that's my nigga. In that song, he talked about how weed is curing all of these diseases, and like he had said some shit we never even heard of, like something thrombosis and shit, and we used to just like, okay, so no, it doesn't necessarily cure.
No, I know. I'm just shaking my head, like
right, but it absolutely turned out to be like this medicinal boom that a lot of scientists had not admitted to yet or was not up on yet. This is one of those things.
So, but here's the thing with that. Scientists been recognized the medical benefits of weed,
but they was not.
It was the government. It's the government who
okay,
had a
but
lot
why
of
didn't the scientists fight back then? Why didn't they say that?
Because
why didn't they make that common knowledge? Like they shouldn't do that. That's not
because the government has to say at the end of the day. Science and the government is two separate entities.
Those are two separate entities, but but as the scientific community, we trust you. What you're saying.
Yeah, but
let's say, for instance, let's talk about another one that will make it plain for you.
Is it possible
climate
to comment
control
on that real quick? Just real quick. So like when I was talking about the pharmaceutical drug companies, like that's a huge reason why the weed hasn't been able to spread like it should.
Oh no, we're gonna get back to that.
That's not the main reason though.
Just like if you talk about climate, let's talk about climate control for a moment. If you talk about climate control, you know that the government has their position on it, and what do you call it? Scientific community has their position on it, right? But we trust the scientific community. As progressives, you're like, yo, what's up? What are you guys saying?
But here's the thing, they
should speak the truth.
We can trust who we want, but the politicians still set the rule.
That's great. They should still speak out so we can know.
So, but here's the
That's all I'm saying. You should still speak.
So I feel like they did speak, but
at
the end of the day,
you got a cape for the scientific community.
No, I love scientists, and they're not perfect.
That's right.
They're not perfect. No, they're not. But like all of those, like, oh, this is your brain on weed and showing 2 eggs frying in the pan and all that. That was government.
We for madness.
Yeah, that was all government funded. That's not like the scientific community donated money to demonize weed.
I think they should have went harder though. But I get what you're saying. We can agree on that.
Well, there's 2 problems. One, there's not enough studies that have been done on marijuana because a lot of times scientists actually borrowed from studying it too much in certain areas, depending on the area that you're in. So that's one problem, is that we actually just need more studies done. The second problem is that, the pharmaceutical companies spend billions of dollars lobbying our politicians to have stances on weed. I live in Maryland, and Maryland is a pretty liberal state. There's no reason why you should still be able to like go to jail for possession or like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's like it's obvious now that there's some undue influence that's aside from the American people's consent when it comes to marijuana.
I'm really hoping we get a caller in because they is going off in the comments about the scientific community.
So here's the thing, right? Weed is a sedative type of drug. Like it has like a sedative effect on you, and you could use weed for like pain control.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like weed also has its cons too. Like weed can cause psychosis.
Oh man, that's such a small fraction of a tiny. Like, who gives a fuck?
I mean, you're right.
No,
you're
really,
right.
No, who gives a fuck?
No, you're right.
Because it's such a fraction. It's such a tiny. Like, just think about all the medications that we have and the side effects and what it can cause.
No, you're right. That's a
so
fact.
I think that they dropped the ball on weed for way too many fucking years.
But also, like they've done
y'all might
studies
not
that
agree
show
with me when I
that.
say this, but like I really think that like the fact our stance on like making at least the specific drugs that we have that are illegal is stupid. And the reason why I say that is because there have been other countries like Portugal who legalized drugs. They solved their opioid epidemic. They had one of the worst opioid epidemics that we've ever seen in the world. And they were able to solve it by but not only legalizing drugs, but using the revenue made from legalizing drugs and investing it into rehab centers and what is it called? Those deferment programs where basically they try to get people off of like abusing drugs before they really start.
Right.
They invested it in all of these like education programs and also consumption centers so people could actually consume drugs in a more safe way. And they cut down on overdoses almost like overnight. It was crazy.
Yeah, I really don't think.
I don't care about the opioid crisis. That's not a black people's problem. I don't give a fuck about that shit.
Actually,
Are you being serious?
yeah, he said, "Are you being serious?"
Yo, I'm being 110. I'm being 110% serious. I don't give a fuck about that shit.
You know, I do think it's a
I
little
feel differently. I live in
overstated
Baltimore,
right now.
so I see black people on hair. I see black people on opiates all the time.
I've
like,
well,
just my
wait.
personal
So you said
experience,
you're
like,
from
I live-
Detroit?
and I live in the hood in Baltimore. I don't live.
Oh,
in, like,
you're
the
in
high-rise,
Baltimore.
you know what I mean?
I,
I live
well,
on
so
Greenhouse,
so like
So I see black people affected by the opioid crisis all the time. But,
Black people on
I feel you. I think
opioids?
that mostly probably in the rural areas is probably white people, but like I know some other people suffering too for real.
I
Well,
thought
yeah,
black
but
people
because-
smoked
and-
crack and
and-
used
and-
heroin.
But
And-
this is
and I
the
just want
thing,
to make
though.
a quick point is like anybody could suffer.
But
with an
anybody can
opioid
suffer off of
addiction pretty
anything.
easily.
We can do ourselves
but-
in with alcohol. I'm not even really on that whole fighting the war on drugs thing. Me and you already talked about this. In the, in the
Yeah,
private
to be
chat.
quite honest with you, we kind of have a perspective like, yo, supply and demand. If you want to do drugs and kill yourself,
Yeah,
then
go
do your
ahead.
thing.
Do
It's
your
a free
thing.
country.
And you're a
live your
grown-ass
life.
man,
Yeah,
yeah.
It's
live
your
your life.
It's your
Now
life.
people are
Like,
gonna say,
there's no
but
reason
what?
why we should be making that decision
People are
for
gonna say,
people.
well, what about the kids? But this is the thing about a free society. The thing is, we cannot control how somebody else raised their kids, and we can't try to decide what is gonna make them a better mom or dad for their kids. So you can't say, I think alcohol is okay for you, but I don't think that weed is okay, or I think weed is okay, but I don't think crack is okay, or I think crack is okay, but I don't think overdosing on the drugs your therapist gave you is okay when you
Right.
getting the Xanax. So you know what I mean? So you don't have no control over that either. So you gotta let people live, whether you like it or not. You gotta. So the whole war on drugs is moot, really, and ridiculous, and it's been an embarrassment for
Well,
the,
they say
for
what
the
about the
fucking
kids,
country.
but nobody ever says what about the kids like today because we have alcohol. People are selling beer. You know what I mean? In liquor stores, you don't hear anybody coming over a microphone or a megaphone saying, "What about the kids? You know, we're selling Bud Light and we're
Won't
selling
somebody
Guinness
think
and we're
about the
selling
children?
you know all these beers." They don't give a fuck. Like back in the 30s or the 20s when we had prohibition, I guarantee there were a lot of people talking about what about the kids or what about this, or what about that. And because of prohibition, we created some of the biggest criminals known in American history, like Al Capone. So we gotta understand that this whole notion of the war on drugs only benefits a few people in the country.
We saw Life with Eddie
it's-
Murphy and it was Martin Lawrence and Eddie Murphy, right? That was a good ass movie.
Everybody, that's one movie that every black.
I
person
love the
loves.
soundtrack. Life.
I want to say something.
Casey and JoJo.
I want to say something. What Minister Jazz said. She said the entire scientific community doesn't agree, though. So that's the thing about it being a community is that we have to I don't listen to just one scientist. Like they don't impress
That's
me.
the beauty of
It has
science,
to-
though.
yeah, it's got to be a consensus. Now, some of them won't agree, but if most of them do,
Yeah, science is
I'ma
not a
rock- I'ma
monolith.
rock with that.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it, though. It's not like
Right.
even if my boy what's his name Neil Day
DeGrasse Tyson.
yeah Neil I'm to call him Tyson Neil Tyson. If Neil Tyson say XYZ, everybody don't have to go with it, and I like
Right,
that.
right.
Even though
They're
Neil
not supposed
Tyson
to
is
go
looked
with
at
it.
as like
They're not supposed to
or
go with it.
even
That's all, the whole point of science
Exactly.
is for there to be
Yeah,
peer review.
exactly.
Like the whole point, like the accepted theories that we have for science have been extensively peer reviewed.
Yeah,
by other
exactly.
People. The
And
whole
that's
point
the
of
beauty
science
of
is
it.
for you to come up with some sort of hypothesis and get it peer reviewed by another person who doesn't believe you.
yeah.
So the fact that you're pointing out that all scientists don't agree, well, duh, it's science.
Yeah,
Nobody-
no.
It's got to be.
People
Yeah, it's
don't
got to.
agree with science
It's
all
going to
the time.
be
That's the point.
different. And then it's going to be breakouts and new discoveries. Like that's going to happen. But what
Yeah.
we do is we rock with what the consensus is until we know better.
Right.
That's
Right,
what we all
absolutely,
can
yeah,
do.
absolutely. So yeah, like that's just my view on like the whole drug situation, and just like, I think the quicker we get to legalizing, at least a few of the drugs that we have illegal right now, I think the better we can solve some of these issues and problems that we have.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Do y'all want to talk about anything?
I don't think that I don't know if the drug okay, so I'm not overly convinced that the drug problem is still this huge problem in the community. I feel like they kind of gassed us up with some of it. I remember crack babies was a myth. They told us that the babies was all fucked up for the rest of their life because they were born to crack parents, and then we found out the babies were not fucked up for the rest of their life.
Right.
They went on to have normal goddamn lives. They weren't fucked up. Like there was no such thing as, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna just jump on this whole like we gotta hyper focus on drug use. What I think what we should do obviously, if people want help, we should have those resources available to honestly help people who say, look, I've got this addiction and I can't fucking fight it. Just like we would do about anything else. Like I did with motherfucking food. And be like, yo, this is my motherfucking demon. I cannot win. Who gonna come and help me through this situation? You know what I mean? And I looked to other black people in my immediate community, you know, to help me with that. You know what I'm saying? It's an ongoing struggle, but you know what I'm saying? I'm not a quitter. And that's the way it's got to be for any other, whatever your vice is, because humans got to cope with this fucking shit that we're in. And we're going to find different ways to cope. But if there's a vice that's overtaking you and fucking your life up, then at that point, we got to figure out, yo, how can we get support to this person who understands that they have a problem, they want to fix it. So that's how we should be looking at drugs use. Not this
for
whole
me, when
like
it comes
this
to drugs, like the thing I care about mostly is not just like helping people who have drug addictions, but like, you know, ending like this whole notion that you can just arrest black people at higher rates for possession of weed, you know, and like basically making a profit off of free labor from prisoners because you're arresting people for petty offenses when it comes to drugs.
Right. That was actually
the
just
whole
a
marriage
plot
of
to have a
private
reason
prison
to
industry
arrest
and
black people.
pharmaceuticals is just crazy.
Yeah, but I agree with you, Donovan. They were just basically at that point just coming up with a path to arrest black people. That's exactly what that was. That's exactly what that was. They're like, okay, now we have they caught red-handed. And you know, I talk about that book. What's the book I talk about all the time? Anybody know? The New Jim Crow. The New Jim Crow. I talk about the Wretched a lot. But the New Jim Crow, like that is if that is like a Bible that black people should. I'm gonna tell you why black people should read that book. Black people should read that book. Oh, I'm about to get in trouble, boy. Here we go. Every week I drift further away from God's comfort and grace. But here we go. Everybody need to read that book so they can understand the danger that the black man in particular is in this country. I feel like if you are I'm in so much trouble, but here we go. If you are directly targeted by the enemy, like they want you dead or in jail. That's how they want to see you. And they make all of these laws and shit to get you there. They're not fucking with you. Like, they're like, yo, we are on record as stopping only black people and not white people for these exact same crimes and shit. Right. If you're the target of that kind of attention, then you are more oppressed in this society. I don't know how else to put it. The fallout for women is deep because we have to deal with being oppressed directly as women, dealing with, you know, regular abuses and everything of life, and the fallout from having our men taken away out of our, you know, being arrested and shit. Okay, so I'm not saying that women ain't hurting the most. Black women hurt so deep that I ride for them till I die for them. But we have to, in order to get black women healthy and get us back up to where we need to be, you know, to heal from the attacks that we've been under, we have to admit that first, that black men are directly targeted by white supremacy in this country. Like, are we is everybody willing to do that or not? Because I don't see people willing to do that.
See, the thing is the struggle with that is that some people feel like that women have the black and the woman struggle, and then other people feel like men have the black man struggle. You know what I'm saying? That's not
enough.
Yeah, I guess they feel like they're like neck and neck in terms of like.
I see what you're saying, and that actually makes sense though.
So it's
because y'all don't have to deal with all the struggle of womanhood. That is.
Yeah,
something
super
that
traumatic. Yeah, that's super traumatic.
But
then also, the man's version is super traumatic too,
my girlfriend
prison.
Telling me about what be going down, and I'd be like, "Yo, I couldn't deal with that shit."
Right.
I couldn't be a woman. Like that shit just seems like, because I feel like men are like super predatory and they're like fucking wild animals. So I feel like to be a woman is like a fucking real job. It's like a double job. But then being a black man is a double job too, though. So it's like I can't really pick which one is worse.
Compare, you know what I mean? Like, it really is, because I feel you on that, in the sense that, like, in terms of just straight up violence, like like people don't feel bad about black men dying. You know what I mean? Like they might try to pretend like they feel bad, but then a week later they forget or whatever it is. You know, but black women, you know what I mean, gets killed. People remember a little bit more because women are a little bit more vulnerable in terms of like physical dominance. You know what I mean? Not in terms of anything else, just in terms of physical dominance. So I think that like I hear what you're saying in terms of just like as a target of like physical oppression, black men I think will always be black men have it a little bit rougher in the sense that like, you know, we are physically stronger, so people tend not to feel as bad if we get killed or, you know, if we get arrested.
No, I don't think that. I wouldn't go that far. We do. No. We feel bad. Like, we go hard. Like, it's a big deal. Y'all are getting all the attention as far as, like, you know, police shootings and shit like that because y'all are, like, disproportionately affected. And so you guys are getting all the attention. And black women are also killed by police. We don't get as much media, but we're a much smaller percentage. So that all makes sense. But I do think that we are responding. I think as a culture, we're responding
but just in terms of like how the deaths are carried out. Like you look at like Philando Castile, you see that like how brutal that looks. You know what I mean? Him like bleeding in the back of his car. You look at Trayvon Martin. He's not even a man. He's a boy.
Right.
And like the manner in which the deaths are carried out, I guess that's what I mean. It's like people don't tend to care as much about that in terms of exercising that force upon us. But that's the only thing that I can really think of in terms of like there being really a difference in the way we struggle with women. Like it's you have like the whole notion of womanhood that you have to deal with in a patriarchal society, and then you add blackness on top of that.
Right.
Yeah, that's hard,
I think a perfect, you know. There's a real good example of this that I want to discuss. When you brought up what is his name again? Philando? I forget his name. Philando Castile. His wife name was Diamond, right? Or something like that. I don't remember her name, so I feel like it started with an L. I don't know where I got Diamond from. But anyway, his wife. That is a perfect example of what we were just discussing. When we were saying that black women have to deal with like this double thing going on, but black men have to deal with something even. This is deep. So he was brutally murdered in cold fucking blood, right? That's an oppression that is like off the chain, right? Mm-hmm. She, on the other hand, had to deal with that, the trauma of that. She's left with the baby in the back because he's gone now. She had to deal with the trauma of her baby seeing that. And she had to calm down the fucking cop who was gonna fucking shoot again.
Or the baby don't get shot.
She had to. Do anybody remember? I don't know if y'all remember the video, but she literally was telling the cop like, "Yo, just everything's fine. Nobody, you know, everything." Yeah. After he was shot, she still had to calm down the cop. He was so nervous, he was shaking.
Yeah. I remember.
I think that's so symbolic. Hold on, that's so symbolic of exactly what we're talking about. Y'all have to deal with like the more raw trauma of that oppression, but we have to somehow.
I gotta deal with the long-term shit,
some superhero shit, like that. You know what I'm saying? And not only the long-term shit, but like, you know, just the mothering the child and the nurturing and being the voice of reason and trying to calm down this situation, and like that's so symbolic of everything. So I think it's a real disservice to black culture, to the black family, for us to always be competing about whose oppression is more.
And honestly, like I'm thinking, like, you know, screw the competition. Like let's just have the understanding that that's what it is.
Right.
And I think
absolutely,
like, as a black man, like I pay extra attention to, you know, my woman who's a black woman, and in terms of just like, you know, if you're not gonna find any peace in the world, you know what I mean, you're gonna find peace when you're with me. That's how I think, you know. And like I think that more black men needs to understand like really like the trauma of what living in this racist ass country is like for black women as well. And then, you know, for us to appreciate y'all a little bit more, you know, do a little bit more for y'all, I feel like, because honestly, we're in this shit together. Like there's nobody else in this country whose ancestors were slaves, you know? Right. So we need to sort of band together and like understand, damn, like we're both kind of going through this. You know, we're both going through these problems instead of fighting so much.
You're so right.
You know,
that brings me to something
that
brings me to something that I want to discuss that is kind of on the same level of even bringing up some good points. That brings me to something I wanted to say on that same thing. Let's talk about the reparations argument that's been going on. I feel like a lot of the people who, and we're not going to get into that now because we'll never get out of it, but I'm trying to make a point about this. I feel like a lot of the people who are saying Black Americans have to, only Black Americans can get these reparations, you know, I feel like the people who are saying that are not thinking about one thing. America has all the money for all the reparations.
Literally.
Why the fuck are what kind of mindset would be like, but wait a minute, I can't even get the words out my mouth because it's so retarded, not, you know, when I really think it through. There's no reason in the world for Black people to be competing over, because if you do that, then that means mentally you are thinking about being a crumb catcher. You are saying, Massa, whatever crumb you throw, let it be just for me and mine. That is what you're saying, because if you really believe that you got the power to make something happen, make them give you what is yours, then you know they got plenty of money to give everybody what is ours. You wouldn't even feel competitive about that.
They done spent like almost $2 trillion in fucking Iraq and Afghanistan.
They play with that money. They play with that money.
I know it's over $1 trillion, but I think it's approaching $2 trillion because the war's been over 10 years now, right?
Yeah.
Huh?
So okay. I want to be nuanced on this topic though, because like, you know, if we want reparations, there's some important things we need to consider for real. Like, I feel like there's two things. I feel like there are people who are saying we can't get reparations. Those people are wrong. And there are also people who are saying that we're just going to get a check. And those people are also kind of wrong. Like we got to really think through some of these things. And I kind of like, when I first heard about this, I kind of didn't agree with it at first. I was like, nah, fuck that. You know what I mean? All Black people, we all get checks, like no matter what. But then they started bringing up some interesting questions, and I like thought about it. I was like, yeah, we got to think about this, because like, do all Black families get paid the same, right? Do like Dominican families, like Dominican Americans or whatever, who like weren't?
So did they had slavery
Dominican
too?
Americans who weren't slaves in this country, or their ancestors weren't slaves in this country, did they get the same amount as like fully Black people?
No, but who cares?
What you mean fully Black people? What the hell?
Wait a minute though. Listen
not
though.
fully Black, but
But
you know
no,
what I mean.
really though. I'm
Black
serious.
people who
Listen. I feel
ancestors
like,
here who were
listen to
slaves.
me. Why are we asking those questions before we get reparations? I don't understand people who keep saying, well, but wait a minute, we got to ask the question. No, fuck, we don't. We can say we demand reparations, and now let's figure out the logistics. You don't have to say we're not gonna accept any reparations until y'all figure out the logistics.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying we don't need to accept reparations. I'm just saying that like a lot of people are making it seem like it's as simple as just giving every Black family the same amount of money.
No,
like
it's not that simple. It's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess.
I don't think it's not going to be simple. Like I would be mad, honestly, like if like I have a fully Black family in terms of like both parents are Black, parents are Black Americans, both parents had ancestors who were slaves in this country. I'd be mad as hell, honestly, if there was a mixed family who got the same exact money that I did.
What the fuck? What the hell?
I would be mad with that. I would be mad because
I respect your honesty, but that's rubbish.
Okay, listen to me about mixed
people. Go ahead, though.
In this country, though, the one drop rule does apply, whether we like it or not. It was
created by America.
Whether we like it or not. So listen to me. People who are
make sure that's right.
People who are let's say people who are mixed, right?
Yeah.
They, because of the one drop rule in this country, they had the same oppression you had. So what the fuck?
I agree with that, but I'm saying that the fact that like your financial loss probably is not the same as my family, because I have two family members who had ancestors who were slaves.
You're right. Okay, you're right. I understand. I hear you.
Slaves.
I hear that.
So I'm saying, like,
no, you make
does it really make sense?
No, you're making sense. I got too hyped too fast. You make sense. But with that being said, maybe it's going to be a mess, Donovan. Maybe it's going to be a mess. But still, let's cross that mess when we get to it. Let's first unite. Let's first unite under reparations. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand this whole idea that we have to compete with each other for something that they got enough to make everything Gucci for everybody. You know, they have it.
I feel you on that. I just don't think it's going to be as neat. Like, I'm not saying just because it's going to be as complex we shouldn't do it or that we shouldn't get reparations. I'm just saying that, like, I don't want to go in being naive. You know what I mean?
I do hear you. I understand
you. Easy and everybo's just going to get a check. Like,
I understand
you, but I think
that we should just, like, because I think we do this to ourselves all the time. Like, we pick at things to death until there's until there's no way to get through it. Like you have to just like barrel through it. I remember when I was young, I was like in my early 20s, and my best friend said, "Let's open up a daycare." The very first thing I started saying was like, "Oh Lord, how are we gonna what's gonna happen? We gonna live together?"
But let me read a comment real quick.
You know what I'm saying?
April
Like
said some funny shit.
Oh, let's hear it.
So April said there's a tweet floating around where an Asian guy is saying that the U.S. should also pay reparations to the children in Iraq, Iran, and other countries where our government has instigated or directly caused conflict and death. And then she wrote, "Man, run me my Skrilla and shut the fuck up."
The fuck up about that shit. Ain't no Vietnamese built this shit. Get out of here.
But you know the fucked up thing is that
all I'm saying is that like this is what I'm saying is that we live in a very, very political world, and I know in our minds we'd like to think that, you know, like this shit should just be easy. We should all get paid. I want a fucking check too. You know what I mean? Like
I want land. I don't want a fucking
I'm not
check.
against reparations. I want my check.
Give me
But
the
like
land.
all I'm saying is that like in order for us to get our check, I want to make sure that like the people who are saying that they're for reparations, like Harris, like Warren, they actually know what the fuck they're talking about when these questions come up in the political arena.
I understand.
About,
I
like,
understand
how you
that.
do this. Because
They ain't
the reason
going
why I think it's so
nowhere with that
important
talk.
is because if these people are saying that they're for
White
reparations,
niggas
but they don't know
ain't never
shit
vote.
about how they're actually going to do the reparations, then it gets destroyed in the political battlefield, and it destroys our chances of actually getting it.
So look, real
all
quickly,
I'm saying is that, like,
Donovan.
I think that we should just be aware of like these questions. You know what I mean?
I think it's
And
inevitable. I think reparations is going to happen eventually. It's
I
just
hope
about
so.
when.
I hope so.
I think it's inevitable as we progress to. That's like just how it. The more you know, as time goes, you progress, and even the
social justice.
even the oppressed people become more and more. You know, in a superpower, even the oppressed people become more and more comfortable as time goes by, and at some point we'll be like right now, the people in the ghetto all have iPhones and shit. Like, you know what I mean? It's not like you know, as time goes on, like there will be progressions, and as they get richer. Unfortunately, it's a fact that
It trickles down. It trickles down a little bit.
I won't say it trickles down, but I will say that they're poor.
The
Go-
bottom,
goes
no,
with
the
them. Right,
bottom,
right.
the bottom raises.
Right, I don't want to use that term because I know it's gonna get
Trickle down economics. I
Yeah,
copy,
yeah,
I
it's gonna
copy.
trigger. But
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
just
yeah.
to say to April though, like, you know what? Those people in Iraq, probably not Iran, but in Iraq and Afghanistan, you know what the reconstruction budget was like? Hundreds of billions of dollars. Like literally, that was their form of reparations. The rebuilding process out there, like, you know how much money those people in Iraq and Afghanistan have scammed the U.S. government? Like, I'm talking about, because like they all do military contracts. I was watching a documentary about that. I'm talking about billions and billions of dollars have gone missing in Afghanistan. I'm wondering, like, what the fuck are they doing with that money? Probably paying ISIS militants and shit like that their
military
salaries.
contractors and
Yeah.
and those rebels. and the rebels
Minister
that they armed.
Jazz definitely agrees with you as far as she said, you know, give me property and deeds.
Money,
Gotta understand
money
what
depreciates. Money is
I'm
fuckery.
fine. I'm fine with a check.
No, I want that land.
I'll
Look at
decide
that
if I want to
fucking
buy my
land.
fucking
Can we
land.
talk about the candidates who actually
can sell
have a
your land.
reparations platform?
Yeah,
'Cause
or
I've
I
looked
can
at them.
use my check for whatever
Warren
I want.
and Harris.
Give me that.
Harris is talking about a tax credit. Warren's talking about housing assistance with no. We don't even have equity, so I don't understand how we're going to get housing assistance when we don't have any equity in the houses to actually own them or manage them. But so my problem is this: is like I find that politicians are easily able to sort of pander to our communities, especially based on reparations, given sort of like milquetoast solutions that aren't really reparations. But because we haven't really demanded that they thoroughly go through each point of how they're actually going to get us reparations, meaning a check, then they're able to sort of make it seem like they're for reparations for black people, even though
Donovan,
they're not
I'm gonna
really
put
for
you
reparations
on
for black
hold
people.
for a minute,
And
Donovan.
the reason why that's dangerous.
Donovan, one
is
more.
'cause-
I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I got to take a call.
Oh, sorry, I
Give me
didn't
a
hear
minute.
you. I apologize.
Oh, we might have lost him. Oh, are you there with me, caller?
Yeah, this is Reva.
Ah, shit! Yo, on a sneak attack. She didn't even warn nobody. She didn't show up in the comments. This bitch came under a tunnel.
They're in the building.
Listen,
Woo,
before you
child,
start, listen to me. Before you start, I just want to go on record as saying I'm all about that life for reparations, and I'm all about that life for Black American tribe. I'm all about that. But I do not understand, and I'm going to let you talk after I say this. I do not understand why it ain't plenty for everybody in this country. So, go.
Okay. Is that for me?
No. This is for we got a caller. Go ahead,
I
Reva.
don't think the issue. is or ever has been whether or not there is plenty of money.
Okay, good. Good.
I mean, I think it doesn't matter whether or not there is plenty of money. I think the only thing that really matters is, you know, like I don't care how much money the United States has. The United States always has way more. You know,
Right.
it's the reason we don't have our reparations is because there isn't the money.
Right.
So the issue that's been keeping us from our reparations has nothing to do with that. So I don't see why
Right.
I don't understand why that's a point. to be
No,
made.
no, no.
The
Let me
fact
tell
of the
you.
matter
No, wait.
is-
No, wait. I'm
the
gonna tell you why.
fact of
No,
the matter is
no.
that
Wait. You're gonna
our
address this.
personhood or lack of personhood.
You're gonna address this, Reva. You're
overrides
not running from this
the
question.
resources.
You're not gonna run from this because I speak mad plain, so I know
Honey,
you.
I'm not right. Wait.
Okay, so don't run
wait,
this.
let's
Then
be
hear me
clear.
out. Then
Let's
let
be
me.
clear. I ain't never ran from no question
Okay,
you
good.
ever gave me.
Good. Then let me give it
Nothing
to you
ever
again.
said to me has ever been that serious.
You're right.
Okay?
You're absolutely
So
right.
let's-
You're right. My
yeah.
apologies. My apologies. So let me give you the question again. What I'm saying is that I agree with you. They don't want to give us reparations just because they don't want to. But now, once they decide that they want to, and we know that they've got $1 zillion to do so, why do we have a problem with anybody else getting it too?
I don't. I want to be sure I get my stuff first, and I want to be sure I get all of it.
Okay,
I don't want
okay.
to throw. I don't want because we're talking about a political strategy here. That's why.
Okay.
Because it's not politics to say everybody gonna get everything. That's not how you go in with an argument. You go in, lawyers don't go into a damn courtroom and argue about everybody this thing has ever happened to. You got the case that you need to make for your
But
client.
do you know that people have already asked about that?
And
Like,
that's
I'm sorry, I don't
literally
mean to
what
cut
we're
you off.
talking about. No, you do
Wait,
mean
I
to
don't
cut
mean to
me
cut you
off.
off. I
You
just wanna
talk
ask you-
for how
I just wanna
long?
ask
You
you something.
No, wait a minute. No,
absolutely
we're
mean
gonna
to
let her
cut me
talk.
off.
We're gonna let her talk,
So
Donovan.
don't cut me off if you don't
Donovan,
mean
we're
to cut
gonna
me
let her
off.
go for a minute. You can
If
go.
you don't mean to
I
cut
thought you were
nigga,
done.
when
You're
I
not
finished,
done?
what did I do? Breathe and give you the impression that I was done talking?
Let him go.
Yeah,
I have to
actually,
take a breath.
You
Don't
stopped
tell
for a
me you
second,
ain't
so I
trying
thought
to
you were
cut
done.
me off, nigga. You were trying to
No,
cut me
you
off.
stopped for a
Stop.
second, so I thought you.
Full stop, nigga. I stopped to breathe, my nigga. Shut up. You done talked all this damn time. I literally just called in. Like, as soon as I start talking, niggas got everything to say. Like, goddamn, you done had your whole time to
Because
fucking
you make
talk.
good points.
Now I'm off my fucking train of thought because you just
Okay, because you
fucking
make good points. But go ahead
cut me
though. Go
off.
forward. Go forward.
Now I'm fucking having to argue with your motherfucking ass about why you cut me off. See, that's that bullshit. Anyway, now what the fuck was I even saying?
Go ahead. I'm listening.
God damn. I swear I hate men. What? Anyway,
we
right
can
now,
tell.
what was I
We can
saying?
tell. We can tell. No shit.
Go ahead, Reba. You got the entire floor.
Okay, so what I'm saying is this is a political strategy, okay, and that's why. Because what happens is when you throw in more information, you throw in more parties, what it does is it weakens your original claim. And if your original claim is about slavery, you make it as simple as possible, and it's something that is so verifiable and that is has such strong evidence in relation, to the claim. Like you don't want to weaken your claim with other claims that are not based in.
I hear what you're saying. I think I understand what
history.
your point is. I think I understand it now. I'm understanding. It's just that I don't. Okay, so the thing is, I'm just not where you are yet. In my thinking, in my head, I'm thinking like I just want us all to unite to fight toward getting reparations, and then we can start talking about what our lawyers are going to say
Who is
to.
us?
Huh?
Who is us?
I mean, black people. I want us to first talk about getting reparations. We all get together and be like, "Yo, this is happening, son."
But you know how. But see. Why do we have to get with other black people to talk about what happened?
Because
to
there's
us,
power
our
in numbers.
reparations?
We all need
Because
each other.
No, we're not. We're all in what together?
I said there's power in numbers, so we need each other to make it
But
stronger.
it's not. But they're not part of our claim. They're not part of our slavery claim.
Okay,
they're
but
not.
when we get to that point, though, that's what I'm saying.
Reparations are literally repayment. They're repaying
Right,
us
right. But
the money
listen-
that we should have gotten that we didn't get. We literally already did the work. So why do we have to go in with somebody else for work we already did that they never paid us for? We just need our check. We just need our payment. We can do that. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. Like we can still organize for, other things. But, we're talking about a history that happened before there were black immigrants in this country. A time before there were black
So
immigrants.
I get her point. I mean, like, I get the point.
Yeah,
I don't feel like the U.S. government owes me reparations. Like, I don't feel like that personally, because like I can't trace my history past the 1980s, like family
Right,
wise.
and I understand what she's saying, but listen to me. Don't you think that it would be great to have all of these voices together shouting for reparations? And once we get to that
Why
point,
wouldn't they still shout for us to get our reparations?
But they gonna be shouting for some money that they not gonna get.
Like, wait, I'm
some
already
of those people
exactly,
in that crowd
exactly,
gonna be shouting.
exactly. You see
That's gonna be a new battle.
About?
You feel
That's
me?
exactly what I'm talking about.
Just like
Why
just like if
wouldn't
the
they
UK,
steal? The same way when they started when the countries in Africa in the 60s, when they started throwing off, the colonizers, when they started ending colonization, we rejoiced with them. We shouted for them to be freed. We shouted for Mandela to be freed. Like, why in the fuck wouldn't they still march out in the fucking streets for us? Like, we not the reason they here.
Charlie.
Like, we didn't march for them to get over here. So I don't see the connection. I don't see the connection.
Just like if the UK decided tomorrow that they were going to give reparations to their colonies, the African Americans ain't going to get none of that.
That's true.
You feel what I'm saying? So
that's true.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying
it goes both ways.
So I get agreeing with you.
So, like, what you talking about?
Yeah, he agreeing with you.
You just
okay,
argue.
okay. I'm sorry. I'm just always hype for Robert. I'm sorry. My bad.
Or is it Robert or men in general?
I think it is men in general.
Somebody saying they can't hear. Somebody saying they can't hear. Courtney saying she can't hear. Is everybody mic sounding nice?
Nah, it's good. It's good.
Okay, so we were like, so I think that again. Yeah, Donovan can call back. Donovan, my apologies, and I do mean that sincerely. But if you want to call back in,
I
you
don't
can.
apologize.
Yeah, too much crosstalk makes for bad radio.
And I can't just keep letting it happen. Like it's on me if I let this crosstalk happen, and people are frustrated. Mm-hmm. It's our job to make sure that don't happen. But you can.
That was quick.
You can call in rebuttal at this point, cause she done laid down some hard shit for you. Donovan, what's up?
Hey, so I had a quick question though, because I'm my bad about Reva, by the way. I thought she was finished, but
it's
she
okay.
wasn't.
No, you good. You good, man. We do this every week.
This is how we
I
do.
am finished now. I am finished.
Yeah, you're good, Donovan. Nothing. We don't take this type of stuff personal.
Like, you got another thing coming. So my bad about that, Reva. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just thought you were done. But my question was basically, so what do we say? Because like on the political stage, we've already had people ask like, so if we give reparations to black people, we got to get them to Native American, got to get them to Chinese people, like. So if you don't believe that we should do that, then what do you say like as an answer to that?
But that's a dumb argument. The Chinese got paid. You talking about what's that movie with Will Smith, The Wild Wild West?
Break it down to
right? And they had the Chinese building the railroad. They got paid. That was slave labor.
Like slavery was literally work that we did, that we should have been paid for, that we weren't paid for.
Exactly.
And
the Chinese got paid.
And then the disenfranchisement. They disenfranchised us, even, for 150 years, actually, obviously they're still disenfranchising us even today, but, we can cut it off at like 150 years after that, which led to, which led to, the greatest, wealth ever created in history.
I mean, that's a part of it that we were building this country.
That's something that we have a real, actual historical context for, and that we have all the evidence for, and that I think that's a point that just cannot be argued.
And
I think so. Can I just like summarize what you said, just so I make sure I understand? All right. So from it seems like you said that like once that question comes up, we basically talk about that figure of like this is what it cost us basically to do all this free labor. This is what it cost us to basically
like a contractor would.
Okay. I like that answer actually. That's a good answer because then I think at that point people can see the numbers behind it, the actual figures. Like, oh damn, we have came up.
I think they calculated it to 1.5 million per slave descendant, something like that. I seen some.
And I know, and then it's not just fucking work hours either. I mean, they fucked us up, son. We got a civil case.
We got raped. half of the African Americans is like
they was
got rapist DNA in them too.
Like got rapist DNA in their whole shit.
Any other like
feet missing and shit, like
or something like that.
All the way
they
up.
put in
Slim got rapist DNA in him.
Yeah, you definitely. Light-skinned people should get extra
money for
medical that's a fact.
And then
the biracial one's supposed to get a bigger check.
I'm sorry,
What do you guys
Reba.
think about the
We doing
candidates,
too much.
the
What'd you
candidates that
say?
are claiming to be for reparations, like Warren, Harris? Like, have y'all heard about like what their reparations policies
Ain't none of
look
it.
like?
It's all bullshit. Ain't none of
Yeah,
them
it's just
serious
bullshit.
about it. Ain't
It's
none
just
of
to
them
make it
serious
through the
about
primaries.
Definitely.
But yo, look, Donovan, you know, it's funny because you and Reva actually kind of agree because you saying you don't want the mixed race people to get,
And
and Reva's low key on that same line.
No. I'm not saying that.
No,
I'm
you
not
did
saying
say that. No, don't say you ain't saying it now. You did say that.
Clear about what I meant when I said that.
No,
I just
you
wanna
clearly
see,
said-
I want to see, like, do we pay everybody the same amount of money? That's
All
all I
right,
care
so
about.
but look, we about to throw a new argument in there. Me and Monique just came to the conclusion that the mixed race people should get even more money, not less.
For the
Because they
slave
got
rape trauma.
white
Yeah,
men.
because they got slave rape trauma.
Word.
They got what?
They got slave rape trauma, so they got to deal with that.
I think. See, this is my thing. Is like,
Yeah,
I think we
slave
should-
rape trauma. They got every time they look at their DNA results, they like 30% white.
Are you saying that like the other slaves wasn't raped? What are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do have like English and Norwegian, but I did like an ethnicity test for my DNA.
Look, he's trying to count his coins already.
Yeah, no, but
There's no
what
reason.
what we saying is that the ones that got raped are the ones that need to get bigger checks, and the ones that are just like pure blooded African American. That's what we
He's just
saying.
doing- we just
we're
doing
talking
the
about something
most. Don't-
important right now. Is
don't-
like, how do we
don't-
measure
I mean,
law?
don't
granted, we
acknowledge
playing.
that.
Listen, we playing a bit of a devil's
I guess
advocate,
if
but
there's-
there's some truth in
that's what's
it.
the-
Yeah,
and that's
Goes
what the
all
mess
way
is gonna
back,
be.
and it goes back to rape. I mean, I don't see. I think that. You know, I think that those. I don't see why those people. They should sue. They should sue the estates. They should sue those people.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
we
but,
agree.
yeah, no,
We
we
agree.
agreeing with you. And like, I'm not like, listen, I just want my motherfucking check. Y'all talking about
Right.
you gotta have land. Why I can't buy land with my check, and why I
I
can't?
want y'all to get y'all checks so I can figure out how to swindle y'all up out of that fucking money. I want y'all to get that shit. Fuck you mean?
Go ahead. I'm gonna be buying T-shirts and shit from motherfucking.
I'm gonna have
If
Fitted
y'all
by
niggas
wave.
for
I'm
real,
gonna
be your own
open up a
people.
liquor shop.
you got my number already.
I'm gonna open up a corner store with all Newports, nothing else for sale.
So we never
I mean,
did
these are
get
good- these are
to
good questions
the
for,
male
like,
and
even if you
female
disagree, you know,
dynamics
this is good shit.
in this conversation. But if anybody wanted to discuss that for any reason, you can call in because I don't want to sound like I catfished y'all and thought we were going to talk about one thing. We talk about something else. That topic is still open for anybody who wants to call in. Like I said, especially if Tiana decides to call in. Because I know that.
Well, you know what? I would really love to talk about. You know, we didn't get to finish our conversation last week.
Let's get it. What's
We
up?
got cut off. Where you you said that that nigga was he had laid his sacrificed himself on the altar of black motherhood, and that went all the way through me.
Oh, no. I did not want to go back to that conversation. Oh, God.
You don't want that smoke.
Listen to me. Did I say that? I said somebody laid themselves on the
Said
altar.
that. You literally said, because I played it back. You said he had sacrificed himself on the altar of black motherhood because he talked about his opioid addiction that a black woman helped him through, pulled him through, birthed him through.
Yeah, I did. I thought, but listen to me. Can you hear me out before you get started? Hear me out before you get started, okay? Let me give me 1 minute time to state my case. I was being a little hyperbolic there. Yes, that's true. But
A little.
a little Drake. No, I was being a little hyperbolic there, but I was trying to make a point. The point that I was making is that he made that sacrifice for me to come into, for me and for other black women listening, black moms listening, not for his woman, for black moms listening, that he would open up to discuss something personal for this topic on our podcast. Like, that takes a lot. Like, I don't even be getting all personal all the time. You know what I'm saying? It takes a lot to open up your
But you know what? When I told y'all about my crackhead mama and all my damn past and shit, you didn't fall out your damn seat. Oh my God, you're being so open. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what the fuck?
Cause that's normal, man. We from New York.
Yeah,
That's normal. Like,
we can talk about our.
and we more surprised when you tell us your mama never did drugs. Like,
you never said, you know what, this black woman really
in
did
the
sacrifice
80s,
a whole
everybody
lot.
was getting
So
high.
she
You're making a
did,
point.
you
You're
know,
making a
so
point there.
You
You're right.
fucking said this nigga made the sacrifice by telling it. Get the fuck out of here, man. That's just wow. That's not right. Ugh. It goes through me like it makes me want to throw up.
Listen, I I don't know what to tell you about that, but I do know this. I know this though. I know that your commentary was off because you were saying, "Oh well, that sounds like some mule shit," but I having no idea what she does for him.
I don't have to. I mean,
so then you can't say that. Then how can you call somebody a mule if you don't even know what the reciprocation relationship
the conversation
is?
Saying how useless men are to us. Okay, so how in the fuck the reciprocal energy ever if you're already starting out saying how fucking useless you are to our lives?
So you're telling me that if a guy gets up and be like,
Black
"Yo,"
women are not some kind of cup that just overflowing and just infinite fucking energy to give your ass.
Yes,
and
they are.
Especially mothering energy. Okay, mothering energy is for our children,
And
not for our fucking partners. Not for the people who's supposed to be there.
But that's not the point that he was making, though. He never said that.
Who we are the mothers.
He never said that. I think you're misconstruing something. He never said that.
No, I read his comments that he wrote to me, and I listened to what that draining ass nigga said. I know he drained the fuck out of that woman because he fucking drained the fuck out of me all in them damn comments and in that damn and in the damn conversation. So I know he's draining her.
Really? You're comparing what he gives to you and taking you to what he gives the love of his life. You're comparing yourself to the love of his life. Does that make sense, Reva?
She's just trying to emphasize her point of how draining he is.
Okay, that's fine. He is draining, but you're doing that in a way of being very personal with his woman exists as an entity. You know what I mean?
You know what? Here's the thing. You mad at me for commenting on what the fuck that nigga said on his own statements. He didn't have to call in and center his motherfucking pill addiction in a postpartum depression conversation. Like, this nigga is wild.
I got a feeling that men can't win with you, though, Reva, because if they come... Men can't win with you, though, because if they come...
Y'all try to listen.
Listen to me. Men can't...
I'm laughing now. Listen.
Men can't
y'all
win.
Y'all tried to tell me that would not... That does not contribute, that's not a contributing type of factor for black
listen to me.
Depression.
If a man comes into a conversation and says to you... And he says, "Yo, I'm doing everything right. I'm supporting my woman. I'm doing my best." You're gonna be like, "Nigga, please. I hope you don't think that because you coming in here bragging about what you do." And then if a nigga come in and say, "I was wrong,"
useless you are. Wait.
So either way, he cannot win. Is what I'm saying.
How fucking useless he is. You can't start off the conversation admitting how useless men are, and then at the same time want praise for being such a big help.
Because he came humble.
You can't have both.
He came humble, so if he would have went the other way, you would have said, "Now he coming boasting."
I said what I said. What you mean? I already said what I said.
Because that's the angle he went. Oh, I gotta use the bathroom. You want to talk about draining?
Anyway.
Oh Lord, I almost. Yo, you want to talk about draining me, girl? Yo, listen to me. Either he could not have done right by you, Reva.
That nigga sacrificed himself on the altar of black motherhood.
Man, I regret that.
But she gonna be trolling you that for some time.
Hey, yo, I regret that statement with every fiber of my fat ass being. Let me tell you, I hate I said that.
Me too.
Reva, I'm sorry I said that. That was overstating. I did too much. I did too much with that. Okay. I did too much fucking much.
And then let me tell you just how fucking trash that nigga is. I can't comment because I'm fucking banned from Facebook because I'm
how come we're not surprised?
That's how she snuck in.
Man, let me tell you why it's still in my mind, low-key, like for real. The reason it's still in my mind because I couldn't comment to that nigga because I got fucking banned.
So that shit made your blood boil.
Fucking comment. You know what I'm saying? The last comment I seen from him was, this is some fake ass feminism. Which, first of all, you already know I'm not a fucking feminist. But just like for a nigga to say that is so trash, I can't even. I bet he gets on her fucking nerves, like for real. I hope she leaving. He trash.
Listen, you cannot, no way in hell, pick up all of that from that damn conversation.
Yes, I can.
No, you cannot.
Yes, I can.
No, you're way off. You're super duper off.
Why are you weighing in on what feminism is or is not? You are a whole nigga. What the fuck?
So men aren't able. So men aren't allowed to have an idea of the definition of feminism.
I never fucking brought up feminism. He did, because he's trash.
Ding ding ding.
Yeah, can we get some sound effects today? My voice was holding on until the end of the show. Now I'm croaking.
Oh no, I like you. We got a little rasp to your voice. You know.
I do like a little rasp.
Voice.
I'm not gonna lie.
That.
I
You
do
know,
like, I
a
do think
raspy
that should
voice
be
is
sexy.
sexy and a gap. Listen, it's a
Oh
big
shit!
Listen, girl,
Oh shit! Now you're talking to the right side of me.
I'm saying, you know.
I
That's
do.
my
I'm so
thing,
glad
but
that
anyway.
you snuck through with the sneak attack because I didn't see you coming, so I was not ready. I didn't see you in the comments. I got comfortable.
You know, we didn't finish our conversation though. We was both there. Like, you know, we didn't finish it. And you was like so hyped. You was so hyped.
Yeah, 'cause
Hung
you
up on
made me mad.
everything. Play me for that nigga. Like, man,
Because
listen.
I still disagree with what you're saying though, because what you said is you tried to indicate that she was a mule over that. Like, how could you had no evidence for that, and you still
That was
don't.
the only. Yes, I do. He didn't talk about what he did. He never
Because
talked
he didn't
about
talk
how
about it, that
he
means it
filled
does
her
not
energy
exist.
cup. He never
like,
discussed
really.
how he fills her cup. He just kept telling me that it's reciprocal, but the nigga never told me how. And
Why do he gotta tell you how? Who the hell do you think you are?
Because you have to if you want me to believe that shit. Y'all talking about, I mean, what the fuck? Say, well, I do this for her too, and I did that. You know, be specific, nigga.
No, they're not gonna. He's not gonna
Like,
tell
you
her
being
business.
specific
That's
about
too
how she
much.
pulled your ass, birthed your ass. You know that Pastor John Gray nigga. Like, honestly, that Pastor John Gray said something similar about how his wife. What did he say? His wife like went through more births than him, or gay or something about giving birth to him versus giving birth to their children. Like, I guess that she went through more labor or more pain birthing him than birthing the child. And that type of shit makes me sick.
I will
It's
say
the
that
same
like a
sort
lot
of-
of there are. Sorry, I'm about to
Go
get
ahead,
myself in
Donovan.
trouble.
Okay,
because I'm
I know you did it again, but it's all right. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Donovan.
You'll fight me. I will say that I do think there is like this kind of expectation. Not, I don't want to say for all black men, but for some that I know, especially like that your woman is supposed to almost like take care of you. Even with my dad, like
Say
for real,
it.
like low key,
Say it.
he kind of thought about the same shit. I'm just like, you know, like, and if she didn't take care of him, it's just like this resentment that he felt of like, how dare you like not take care of me? And I'm like,
No, I
for me,
agree
I've
that
always
that's
been
an
very
issue. Yeah,
independent, so I
that's an
never- I
issue
never
generally.
I don't think it's just your women, right? I mean, to me, I'm saying, as you know, growing up even as a black girl, like, you know, okay, so say we're born, you know, the same way we born with, you know, our eggs already on us, you know, whatever. We have our little cup of energy, or you know, whatever. You know, and I feel like that our cup starts getting drawn from so much sooner in life than, you know, maybe our white or non-black counterparts. And I think that, you know, and I think it's seen, you know, we have this trope of like the strong black woman and this, you know, this super mother. And
No, those
so
are two
it's
different
seen as
things.
Something that's like this
Those are two
infinite
different
type
things.
deal. You know, it's like something that's, you know, that's infinite, and nobody ever thinks about how our cup gets filled. Or not
Reva,
nobody. I won't
those
say
are
that,
two
obviously,
different
but
things.
Too many
Be-
people don't think about how our cup gets
Wait a
filled.
minute, though.
And so he was talking about how he had this pill addiction for 2 years. He had it for 2 years. And so that would mean that, you know, I'm assuming they have a very young baby. So that means that he was going through that pill addiction prior to and during her pregnancy. And so what I'm saying is that is him, you know, and so when you are an active addict, especially an opioid addict,
Oh, you're doing
or any
most of the
kind, I
whole
guess.
opium addict thing.
You
Like,
know,
you
you
making
are
it sound
pulling, taking way more than you are giving as an addict, especially, you know, somebody that is, especially in recovery. And
Reva,
so,
you do not know
and
enough
and
about
so
this
I
topic
don't know how
to
he
keep
is
going
feeling
on and on discussing.
her, you know, how
As
are
a matter
you,
of fact,
you know,
listen, why don't we do
refilling her
this?
cup
Why don't
while
we
she's
wait
birthing
until
you?
why don't we wait until we can have both of you guys on the show to discuss it further? Because right now it's one-sided. It's like Michael Jackson in the casket right now.
All right. Okay.
That's where we at right now. You understand me?
Okay.
Let's wait until
No, I'm saying
we
but
got
we
him
can- we
sitting
can-
here.
But why?
Bringing up
Because
a
I
better
think
point.
because this isn't necessarily. It's not, you know, necessary. I'm making a general point.
Okay,
You know,
good.
making
I'm
a
glad
general
because I want
point.
to discuss that general point. I got something
And,
to say
you
to
know,
that. Let me say something about that general point that you're making.
Okay.
When you
okay.
say, you know, the strong black woman and the super mom. First of all, I'm going to make 2 points real quick. My first point is those are two different things. A strong black woman is not nothing to be like downplayed, like, or we got to try to prove that we're dainty and shit like crackers. Like, we don't got to do that. We are strong black women, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that trope. That doesn't mean that you got to mule for nobody. That brings me to my second point.
No,
wait a minute. That brings me to my
What?
second point.
What do you mean we are?
I'm about to
strong
bring
black
you to
women? What do
another
you
point.
mean?
I'm about to break another point. I'm making two. So my second
No,
point is that
I mean, I'm saying, how
No,
are you making
no.
that? How is that a point?
I'm not doing
What?
it. I'm going to make a second point. I'm going to. So if you keep interrupting me, you know what we got to do. Let's not do that. Let me make my second point. So my second point is this, Reva. You cannot, on the one hand, claim that you really believe in, you know, how these black women need their cups filled and all of that. You know what I'm saying? And you believe like in that whole thing. And on the other hand, try to make it seem as if black women don't have the agency to decide what they want to do and who they want to support and how they want to support. Basically you're saying that we gotta be mules. Like if we
a mule can. No, I didn't say she got to be a mule.
She's not a mule.
Just because she chose to be a mule, don't make her a damn mule. Don't make her not a mule.
I'm sorry.
What
Say
are
that
you saying?
again. What? Say it again.
Even if she chose to be a mule, she's still a damn mule. That's what I'm saying.
Listen to me. That's a beautiful point typically with most people, but in this particular case we're talking about a woman who honestly made not her, let's talk in general speaking, hypothetical,
Okay.
a hypothetical woman who genuinely
that's kind of
might have a give and
can
take
we be
with,
clear that we're not necessarily talking about this specific
right
couple
we're
with
talking
all of our
hypothetical
points.
now.
Okay.
And so you cannot tell me that there's not women out there who have men who give and take. Okay, now you're dealing with this opioid thing, and now I'm dealing with this postpartum,
I'm not
and now
telling
you're
you
dealing
that.
with this
I'm not telling you
alcoholism.
that.
So
I'm not
it
telling
ain't
you
just
that.
this martyr of we're overflowing our cup. We're overflowing so much.
My issue was the way you tried to hold that up as some sort of standard. That's what I had a problem with.
Okay, I'm
You
sorry. I
did
shouldn't have did that.
and he
I
did
shouldn't have
that.
done that. I should not have done that. I overstated. So you did. You got a chance to get back at it, but in the future, we can have further discussion. But I would like that discussion to be with both of us here. Is that
Okay.
fair?
I think that's fair.
Okay, I would like to see a part 2. I'm gonna talk to him and see if he's down. Thank you,
Donovan,
everybody.
We appreciate the calling,
Donovan,
man.
you were great. We needed you today, and I appreciate that you stuck with us.
Yeah, and make sure you
Hey,
keep
no
on
problem at
tuning
all.
in and
I had a
calling
great
in.
time.
We
Thank you so much for your work
input.
again. And it was nice talking to you too, Reva. You're spicy.
Yeah, we appreciate your input,
I want to
Donovan. We
thank all
appreciate
of
you.
the comments and everybody in the comments. We can't really when he was not here, we can't really check the comments as much as we want and as often as we want. But we appreciate everybody who came to have this conversation with us. We got off track, but that's the kind of shit I like. Organic conversation that be popping. I love all black people, even when I'm mad at y'all. I love y'all. Peace.
Ow.